For the longest time, I treated color grading like a math problem. I was obsessed with finding the perfect node tree, following strict rules and what the Hollywood greats or even my fellow creators were saying. But my images just kept looking boring, without any soul. And the truth is, I believe that art starts when the strict rules end. I eventually realized that if I wanted videos to actually feel and look like I created them, I had to stop acting like a technician and start being more like a painter. So in this video, I'm gonna show you the exact node tree that I've built for the last couple of years. It's the base that I use for every single clip, from my client work to my vlogs to my talking head. Now, this node tree is inspired by some of the greats that I absolutely adore, but I still broke it down and rebuilt it to prioritize my creativity over perfection. By the way, a huge shout out to Gakuyen. His work sparked this whole structure and actually got me into filmmaking. Now, I didn't copy his node tree, I just took his philosophy and broke it down in the way that I like to shoot and color grade. Let's get into it. Okay, boys, so this is the node tree. We have 13 nodes. Now, your node tree does not have to be this complicated. This is actually really simple. I just really like to tweak each setting as a separate node to keep it extremely organized. Like, this is how I like to do it. If you like to do it this way, it's completely fine. You can also create a beautiful color grade with about like 3 or 4 nodes. Like, it doesn't mean that the more nodes you have, the better the image will look. Like, this is just start. So this is how the final image looks like. Now I'm going to eliminate all of the node tree and we're going to start from 0. So the first node that I like to use is the denoise. Now we're going to go into the effects and search for the noise reduction effect and drag it in. Now the way that I like to use it is change this setting to better and the frames either side to about 4 or 5. I feel like those are the best settings, and the luma threshold and the chroma threshold to about like 30. I think it does a pretty good job for my camera, the Sony a6700, and the way that I like the images to look. Now I know that there's a lot of like controversy in this specific argument, but when I put the denoise after the CST or at the very end of the node tree, I feel like I lose a lot of detail and the colors like get a bit muddy. I simply prefer to put it right here, the first node, and I 90% of the time deactivate it and just leave it like this, unless we're in like a really dark situation where I need to put the noise reduction. So my next node is gonna be the color space transform. Now in this situation, you can use the color space transform on the effects tab in DaVinci Resolve, but I simply like to use Sony's official LUT to transform the S-Log footage, S-Log3 footage into Rec. 709. So in this case, I simply drag and drop it, and you can see that from a sort of gray image, we got the normal. Now, I'm not gonna bore you with the science behind all of the log footage. I'm here just to talk about my node tree. There are millions of videos talking about the science of log that can explain it way better than I can. So just go and watch those after this video. So now that we are in the Rec. 709, we're gonna create a new node and call it the exposure node. Now, I put the exposure node obviously after the CST simply because I think that you can't really judge the highlights and the shadows in the log footage. So I always like to do it after. Now in this case, I either go on the primaries, the color wheels, or even in the HDR settings. I really like to use these simply because I feel like I do a better job on color grading when I use these color wheels. You can use whatever you want, maybe just look online at the difference between the two, but I feel like these are better for me. So in this situation, I will go on the waveform, and the waveform is pretty proportioned. I like to lower a bit the shadows in this situation, just to give it like a sort of more contrast. And I usually never like to go over like this mark here at 896. I sometimes go over it, but just slightly. I just feel like it gives it a more like cinematic vibe for my videos. Now for this node, don't obsess over it right now. I usually do a like sort of quick casual adjustment here just to get it where I want it to be. The reason why is because I know for a fact that I'm gonna come back to this specific node at the very end of the color grade, especially when I put my LUTs. So just keep it loose for now and come back to it later. Now the next node is gonna be the white balance. Now in this case, we need to restore sort of neutrality so we can trust the colors we add later. Now, honestly, this is the node that I hate the most, simply because it's the hardest for me. I never used this like sort of built-in white balance in DaVinci Resolve, simply because I'm a control freak and I feel like I can do a better job like myself just using my eyes. In this case, just like the exposure node, I treat this like a living node, sort of. I will dial it in now, but I can guarantee that once you start like actually color grading, putting in colors and using LUTs, I'm going to come back to it later for sure. Now the next node is going to be sharpness. Now we're going on the blur tab, and I just like to slightly pull this down like to about 0.48. I feel like this is the right amount of sharpness usually for my videos, especially when I'm filming like outside in nature. I don't really love to use this node simply because I feel like the sharpness is already there, like for the camera I'm using, the lens I'm using and everything. So yeah, I usually keep this node off, but I still keep it in the node tree if in some cases I really like to use it. And I usually never go under 0.48 simply because I feel like it's too much. But in this situation, you can obviously do whatever you want, just play with it, and I'm sure you're gonna get the right one that you like. That's the most important thing. So yeah, simply I think that art is not only knowing when to do things, but especially when not to do things. Okay, so now we have the color node, which is basically the saturation. Now I find that the simple standard like saturation here is not doing it enough for me. Like it feels a bit thin. So this is why I use a specific technique to make colors like feel denser and more vibrant without necessarily breaking the image. Now here again, I have to give props to Gaku Yen, because I actually found this out through him, and it's insane the way it makes the colors pop. So the thing you need to do is obviously not use like this saturation here. Just go on the color node, right click and go on the color space and select HSV. Now in this case, when you go on the saturation, you can see that it's gonna do crazy things. So we're not finished yet. You need to still right click on the color node, go on channels and deactivate channel 1 and channel 3. I have no clue what this is doing to the software. I probably need to look into it. But when then I go into the gain here and increase it, I mean, look at the colors. I feel like it's completely different from just simply adding saturation here in this tab right here. Oh shit. Now, the next node is gonna be the skin node. Now, for skin tones, I really like to try and be surgical. I use the pen tool to isolate the skin because I don't want my color grading to mess up the natural tones of my face. Now, I also use the vector scope, so I change it right here, but I don't aim for necessarily mathematical perfection. I just aim for what feels right for me. Like that's the most important thing. So you go into the pen tool, you select the skin and you click on this button right here, the highlights, and you can see that you're isolating your skin. Now I like to use this like feather tool to isolate my skin even better. And as you can see in this situation, it gets like the roof of some houses here. I don't necessarily mind that. I still would like to reduce it, so I will just go here on the luminance and change it a little bit. I also use like these things right here, like the clean black. You can see that it cleans like a bit of the roof, but still like in this situation, if it changes the colors of a few roof, I don't really care, unless it's like a whole wall or a big thing inside of my video that it selects. I'm not gonna like go crazy over it. I will just do what I feel like is right. So now click on the highlight and you can see here on the vector scope that you have this line. If you don't see it, go here on these 3 dots and enable the show skin tone indicator. As you can see, it goes on and off. Now, this is what you need to do. You need to basically align this line that you have, great one, that you have right here with the other line of the skin tones. Now, the way that I like to do this is go on the primaries, the color wheels, go on the offset and just change it. As you can see, like in this case. If I go a bit to the like sort of purple vibes, the line is sort of going in the same direction as the skin tones. Now, if you deactivate the highlights and you enable and disable the node with Command D if you're a Mac, you can see that my skin tones actually are changing for the better, I think. So without the node, these look like sort of like really green. I don't really like this. I feel like I'm sick in this video. So if I activate it, you can see that I get a more like normal skin tone vibe. Now, a pro tip that I'm gonna give you here, which also works for the exposure and the white balance, is to stop for 5 minutes your color grading process. Go for a walk, go pet your dog, whatever, and just let your eyes rest. Because when you're just hours on the computer, your eyes are gonna lie to you. You need to rest your vision, and every single time I come back like 5 minutes later, I spot something that I was missing or something that I was doing completely wrong. Usually the skin tones, I feel like I go a bit more on the orange vibe. So when I come back, I just tweak it even more. Same thing with the white balance and the exposure. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Now we're gonna have a lot of fun because I'm gonna add 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 LUT nodes. Now, the reason why I don't use like parallel or layer nodes is simply because I like to keep it as simple as possible. I'm probably doing something wrong by not using them, but I still feel like this gives me the best outcome possible. Okay, so this is where the magic happens. As you can see, I don't rely on just one single LUT. I like to stack them up and create like a custom blend. So I have a collection of favorite LUTs. I have a lot. I usually download them on free software, or I just pay on like an Envato Elements subscription, and I usually download them from there. Now for this specific video, and usually for nature videos, I use these 3 specific LUTs. I feel like they just give the video a completely different vibe. So the first LUT that I chose is one that basically stretches my waveform. As you can see here, if I activate it and deactivate it, this is with and this is without. I feel like it gives like a sort of like dreamy vibe. I really like it, but I still feel like the colors are not completely right. Now, as you can see here on the key input, I put it on 0.5. So basically it's at half of its intensity. And I like to play with this on each LUT that I use, simply because I feel like if I use like the whole intensity of the LUT, it's too strong, and if I use like less, I feel like it's not like really giving its potential. Now the next LUT that I chose is simply one that changes the white balance a bit. I feel like these 2 LUTs go really well together, so yeah, I feel like it restores the image. And the next LUT that I chose is, I feel like, one that gives even more depth and more colors to the scene, especially for the waveform. Like look, it stretches it out even more. Now I am losing maybe some detail here on the shadows, but I don't really care. I feel like this is the best thing that I can do for now in this situation. Now usually the LUTs that I use add enough contrast, but I still like to keep the node here in case for a sort of specific video I want to increase the contrast. So in this situation, I actually like to do a really small S-curve just to give some more contrast to the image. I don't feel like it's necessary, but I feel like it gives it more depth and it stretches my waveform even more, which I like. Now the next node is gonna be my halation node. Now to put this, you go into the effects tab, search for the halation effect, and as soon as you drag it in, it's gonna look like shit probably, because you need to tweak the settings. I usually go for the threshold. I don't touch anything else. You can still play with it. I think it's really good to understand like what each specific setting does, but I really like to keep it to about 0.5, maybe 0.4 in some situations, simply because I feel like the dreamy vibe, especially in nature, like in outdoor videos, needs to be like really subtle. It doesn't need to be like too much, especially like for this image where you can see that there are clouds and there isn't like really sun rays that give like this sort of reflection. I feel like I actually don't really need it, but still I like especially the effect that it gives on my face. It makes it pop out even more, which I really like. Last but not least, the vignette node. Now the way that I like to add my vignette is go on the mask node and click on this circle mask and stretch it out to the edges of your clip. Now before you play with the featherness, click on this invert button right here and then go onto the color wheels and just drag the offset down. Now as you can see here, the left and right parts of the image of the waveform are going down and are actually like clipping. In this case, I really like it. I maybe like to play with the feathering a little bit more, but I usually like to keep it especially on the edges. Now for the mask, I like to increase it a bit sometimes to give it like a sort of more subtle vignette. Now in this situation, when I finish all my color grading, I go back to the exposure and white balance nodes and just tweak them until I find like the perfect balance for me. At first glance, it might seem like really complicated, this node tree, but once you build it, it just saves you so much time simply because you have everything already built in and you just need to tweak the settings for every specific clip. Now my advice in this situation, don't just copy what you just saw here in my node tree. Try to build it and understand it and then break it down. Swap LUTs, maybe change the order, or just mess around with the sharpness or the saturation, whatever. Just create what you feel like it's right. Now, I believe that a great color grade starts from the camera you use. I made a video talking about what I believe is the best camera for solo filmmakers. If you're into that and you want to check it out, you can click right here. Me, I'll see you in the next one. Bye, boys. Ciao, ciao.